Good evening and welcome to Prime Edition. Via a Gazette notice, all the 22 cabinet secretaries appointed by President Dr. William Ruto, as well as the Attorney General and Secretary to the Cabinet, have been appointed formally through a Gazette notice this evening, which paves the way for their swearing in probably tomorrow. Again, the formation of President Ruto's cabinet.
Indeed, and with that means that 3 by-elections are in the offing.
And that by-election obviously is in Elgeyo Marakwet, as well as in Garissa Township and Kandara in Murang'a, and we'll have a look at that. But then again, this week, the police have been in the headlines, if you would say so, focusing on brutality, the other case of the disbandment of the SSU. And tonight we'll have a conversation on police reform. Have we really been able to transform the police from what we used to call a force to a service? And tonight we'll be engaging the first ever chairperson of the National Police Service Commission, that is Johnson Kavuludi, as well as Catherine Mwati, the director and founder of Silwan Fountain Treatment. And we'll just be looking at, are there signals we are ignoring? How far are we in terms of police reform, and what can be done to put an end to extrajudicial killings? All that in our bulletin tonight.
Indeed.
It's time for us to go to the highlights. So long Parliament. 4 legislators resigned to join cabinet following approval by the National Assembly, seeking closer ties. President William Ruto meets Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who is touring the country. And brace for prolonged drought. Kenyans cautioned.
Good evening. This is Prime Edition, and it is exactly 25 days to the Qatar World Cup, and KBC Channel 1 is your true sports partner. We're going to be televising at least 28 matches, and our radio stations are going to be broadcasting live 64 of those matches. I don't know, Kyria, have you already picked a team?
Obviously, I'll pick once I see how they will fare in their openings. But when you talk about radio stations, they're talking about 17 under the stable of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, the English service also, and the Swahili service. That's about 19 radio stations broadcasting all the 64 matches, as well as KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner, broadcasting 28 matches, because World Cup Eco KBC. My name is John Jacob Curia.
Yes, what can we say? KBC is your place to be and your true sports partner. And we are ready to engage with you. What are your expectations ahead of that global showpiece that is just but 25 days away? I'm Regina Manyara. Glad to have you on board.
All right. And our sign language interpreter tonight is Lensa Odingo. This is earlier where the National Assembly approved the appointment of all the 24 nominees to the cabinet.
This is after the members of the National Assembly considered a report of the Appointments Committee chaired by Speaker Moses Wetangula, which gave 23 nominees a green light, and a separate motion by Kitui County Member of Parliament Irene Kasalu, which saw Penina Malonza given a thumbs up for appointment as Tourism Cabinet Secretary.
Parliament has given its seal of approval to all the 24 cabinet nominees.
Of the Honorable Penina Malonza OGW as the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
On Wednesday morning, members of the National Assembly endorsed the report of the Appointments Committee that approved 23 nominees and rejected 1. Thereafter, the legislators approved Penina Malonza's nomination for the Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage docket after considering a separate motion sponsored by Kitui County MP Lilian Kasalu.
I move the following motion: that in the view of the decision of the House today, with respect to the motion on the approval of appointment of Honorable Penina Malonza OGW as a Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, and the requirement for unequivocal decision of the National Assembly on such matters, I beg to move.
President William Ruto is now expected to appoint cabinet secretaries as follows: Musalia Mudavadi as the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Interior Docket Kithure Kindiki, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u for the Treasury Docket, Alice Wahome, Water and Sanitation, Aidan Duale, Defense, Rebecca Miano, East Africa Community, Asor and Regional Development, Dr. Alfred Mutua, Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Aisha Jumwa, Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action, Moses Kuria, Trade and Industry, Soipan Tuya, Environment and Forestry, Kipchumba Murkomen, Roads, Transport and Public Works. Others approved are Zakaria Mwangi as CS Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Mithika Linturi, Agriculture and Livestock Development Docket, Eliud Oalo, Information, Communication and Digital Economy, Ezekiel Machogu, Education, and David Chirchir of Energy and Petroleum. Salim Vuria of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, Susan Nakumincha of Health, Simon Chilugui of Cooperatives and MSMEs Development, and Florence Bohr for Labour CS. For Prime Edition, I'm Ben Troy Njue.
So what exactly does the approval of these nominees mean? 3 legislators from the bicameral parliament have resigned from their representative roles following their approval to the cabinet by parliament on Wednesday.
The 3 Garissa Township Member of Parliament Aidan Duale, Kandara Member of Parliament Alice Wahome, and Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen Tuesday tendered their resignations to respective speakers pending their formal appointment by the president.
Aden Duale, Alice Wahome, Kipchumba Murkomen and Soipan Tuya have officially switched parliament for cabinet. The 4, whose nominations were approved by the National Assembly on Wednesday, have promised to strengthen the relationship between the legislature and the executive.
I have been a legislative insider long enough, Mr. Speaker. I hope that as I cross over to the executive, I'll keep the faith and do the job.
There is a lot that this country lost, Mr. Speaker, by denying the opportunity, Senate the opportunity to contribute to matters of bills. That is one area, Mr. Speaker, even as I exit from this door, Mr. Speaker, to the executive, that is one area I will continue being an ambassador of the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, that Parliament will continue to put the executive in check so that then we can be able to deliver on the promises.
Aden Duale will be Kenya's next Defense Cabinet Secretary, while Kipchumba Murkomen will head the Roads and Transport Docket. Alice Wahome is set to become Water Cabinet Secretary, while former nominated Senator Soipan Tuya is heading to the Ministry of Environment to replace Keriako Tobiko as Cabinet Secretary. In saying goodbyes to their departing colleagues, members of parliament urged the cabinet nominees to use their experience to effectively serve Kenyans.
We have been members of parliament together, and I have no doubt that you are going to make sure that the people of Kenya get access to water. And now they call you leader, even when you are a ranking member. But I personally will remember you for one piece of advice. You say to me, even at the toughest time, even with all my duties, I have made sure that in my time in parliament, I always am home by the time when my children are doing homework.
Nawashukuru sana na naombea dua. Ndugu yangu Duale, shika kazi, shika kazi.
Following their departure, the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate are constitutionally bound to declare the seats vacant ahead of by-elections. Kamche Menza for Prime Edition.
Now to matters trade. President William Ruto has rooted for closer trade ties between Kenya and Spain.
Speaking during a meeting with Spain Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez at State House Nairobi, Ruto called on Spanish investors to exploit the vast business opportunities available in the Republic of Kenya. It was the first visit by a Spanish Prime Minister to Kenya since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries 57 years ago. President Ruto playing host to Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who is touring the country.
Thank you, sir.
While insisting that Kenya is open to trade and investment opportunities, President Ruto rooted for closer trade ties between Nairobi and Madrid. The head of state calling on Spanish investors to pay attention to emerging business opportunities in Kenya.
Kenya welcomes, Your Excellency, the interest of Spanish companies in various sectors, including tourism, agriculture, infrastructure, water management, and renewable energy. And I commit to strengthen our economic and investment relations between our two countries and appreciate that bilateral flows have shown a very positive growth.
We have many areas where we can work together and strengthening our bilateral cooperation. I was telling the President Ruto that normally in Africa, Spain is well known by its national soccer teams, which is fine. We love that, but I think that Spain is also a potential ally.
The two countries have agreed to develop a permanent dialogue, building on common principles and shared values as part of strengthening their relations.
We are very strong believers that the future is that of cooperation, working together and building a common market, not just as the East Africa community, but also as the continent of Africa, using the infrastructure of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that Kenya is a signatory. And again, Spain can leverage on the advantage you get out of Kenya being the champion, not just for the East Africa community, but the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
3 memoranda of understanding touching on trade, health and education were signed during the meeting. With the war between Russia and Ukraine, as well as climate change threatening the existence of humanity, the two countries have also agreed to continue to work together and adopt a common position on global issues.
You can count on my support and that of my government in ensuring that we take a common position when we go to Sharm el-Sheikh later next month, so that we can, in a robust manner, in an honest conversation, be able to have a discussion on the effects of climate change, especially those of drought, those of famine, the loss of wildlife, the loss of livestock, and the threat to human life that is being caused by the ravages of climate change.
I'm honored to be the first ever Spanish Prime Minister to visit Kenya. Of course, we're looking forward to have your visit in Spain soon next year. And of course, we're looking forward to strengthening our bilateral cooperation on many fields.
That's President Dr. William Ruto. And of course, some of the cabinet secretaries you see there in the front line, you probably, that was their last appearance at State House, courtesy of, tomorrow we expect the swearing in of the new cabinet. But we move this forward. Members of the National Assembly now want the Teachers Service Commission to stop the ongoing compulsory delocalization of teachers.
Now, MPs adopted a motion by Lurambi MP Titus Kamala that demands TSC initiates a comprehensive review of the teacher deployment policy in line with the International Labour Organization.
Teachers Service Commission is on the spot for implementing the delocalization program for teachers without involving stakeholders. Lurambi MP Titus Kamala moved a motion in the House seeking to reverse the delocalization, arguing it was detrimental to the welfare of teachers as well as the performance of students. The motion attracted support from a majority of MPs across the political divide, who demanded teachers must serve within their locality.
And as members of parliament, because we represent Kenyans and these teachers are our voters, where is the problem within the Teacher Service Commission? Perhaps we should go for the leadership.
Compulsory delocalization has been weaponized before by the people who are in power to ensure that the teachers who are pertained or purported to be them or anti their interest are transferred to areas where, for want of a better word, is not suitable for their even career development.
The moral fabric of the society, Mr. Speaker, has been broken because a teacher is married to another teacher. The lady is delocalized to Mandera and the gentleman is delocalized to Busia. Mr. Speaker, these are young people who should be working close because at that age, Mr. Speaker, they need to be close, Mr. Speaker.
The lawmakers maintained the localization program was not supported with a clear policy framework, hence the need to hold public participation on the deployment of teachers. MPs from marginalized areas, however, opposed the motion, insisting teachers must be deployed to areas with no teachers.
Teachers should be posted in counties that are far away from the areas during the time of recruitment. New teachers. When you are recruited, you can be posted far away because we also recognize that we have a country that we have to build.
Teachers, like other civil servants, should never be saturated in one place, and when we have shortage in other areas.
Teachers who were delocalized in 2018 are now applying en masse to be transferred back to their homes, having completed 3 years as per TSC policy. Gishoki Washira, Prime Edition.
Now, the ongoing drought ravaging 3/4 of the country can be partly attributed to climate change.
A lecturer in the Department of Earth and Climate Sciences at the University of Nairobi, Professor Gilbert Ouma, says research on changing weather systems shows rainfall distribution through the season has reduced to 2 to 3 days rainstorms.
Judith Akolo reports a section of leaders drawn from arid and semi-arid lands want the government to declare the drought a national disaster.
Over 4.1 million Kenyans have been rendered food insecure by the ongoing drought. The dry spell has also killed thousands of livestock, and many more are on the brink of starvation. The obtaining situation has further fueled cross-border conflicts in areas such as Kitui and Garissa. But how did we get here?
Drought does not occur just once. For the community, when they see that scarcity, then they start thinking there's drought. But you can see the reduction in rainfall way before.
Professor Gilbert Ouma of the University of Nairobi says the depletion of household resources among the most vulnerable individuals in society could result in a major humanitarian crisis.
Our people are feeling droughts more now because it's not happening just once. It's a successive happening. If you take the example of southeastern Ukambani area, this is the 5th failure of the season.
He further warns that, going by recent data on changing weather systems and studies carried out in Turkana County, most of the dry lands are expected to begin receiving an increased amount of rainfall, while high potential areas may begin receiving reduced rainfall amounts.
The dry areas may start getting comparatively or relatively higher rainfall. And the high potential areas may still receive depressed rainfall as we're going into the future.
A section of leaders from Marsabit County is urging the government to fast-track the implementation of drought mitigation measures in the northern region to help curb the loss of lives and livestock mortality due to the prolonged drought.
The most important thing is, yes, the drought is there, the suffering is there, and how do we alleviate this suffering of the people?
In one of the centers in North Hor, a place called Ileret, early this year we lost 12 children in one center due to malnutrition.
We want our president to declare this a national disaster.
Judith Akolo, Prime Edition.
And of course, we'll continue to give you an exclusive coverage of the bane of drought throughout our successive bulletins. But it's time for us now to take our first breather on Prime Edition. When we come back with more news lined up for you, including business and sports. And then later, that conversation on police reforms. And very interesting panel, because the first chairperson of the National Police Service Commission, that is Johnson Kavaludi, is with us tonight, as well as Catherine Mwati, who is also a counseling psychologist. Let's just look at it in a wholesome way to see whether we are missing the point when we see the kind of brutality that we are seeing from our officers.
Given that they live by the slogan, utumishi kwa wote.
Utumishi kwa wote. All right, let's take that breather.
Ili kupata skiza tune hii ya joking kwa simu yako, bonyeza *811 *758 hash.
Good morning, class. Good morning, Mr. Kipto. Now I want you to write a composition using the word jogging. Teacher, please give us spelling for the word jogging. Sijasema jog ile au ile jog ya kunyongwa. Hapana. Ninasema jogging. Na sijasema jog ile nye unasema jog ya kukimbia ya marathon. Ama ile jog ingine ile jog ya television ya kucheka. Sijasema hiyo jogging. Na maanisha jogging ya brain ile kukimbiza akili changamoto. That a composition using the word jogging.
Ili kupata skiza tune hii, bonyeza *811 *758 hash *811 *758 hash.
October is usually a World Savings Month. For this reason, we will be having a talk on promoting a savings culture in Kenya, where we discuss the general savings culture in Kenya, challenges hindering savings, how to increase savings, how to develop a healthy savings culture, savings options available in the microfinance and SACCO sectors.
Majesty, the rumor is that Lady Ferna has been unfaithful to you.
Do it. Tell him you're having an affair with Ethan. Come on.
Enough of this. I know that you've been wronged.
You should have believed me from the start. Just because she saved your life 2 times doesn't excuse all her shameless behavior.
And in this world, there are few people capable of beating Balgar. Maybe I'm one. Perhaps you're capable of that yourself.
The death knell.
Your Majesty.
Welcome back. You're watching a Prime Edition. To a story that will probably form the basis of our conversation tonight. The Kahawa Law Courts have ordered 4 police officers from the disbanded Special Service Unit SSU arrested in connection with the disappearance of 2 foreigners and their taxi driver to be detained for 30 days at the Capitol Hill Police Station pending investigations.
Now, in a ruling by Magistrate Diana Muchache, the court further authorized forensic examination of the police officers' electronic gadgets and ordered a DNA sample to be taken for purposes of profiling and comparison with the recovered items.
As Serafina Rubin reports, the police have now moved to the Judicial Review Division, seeking to stop the trial's prosecution by the Internal Affairs Unit of the police.
Chief Magistrate Diana Muchache of the Kahawa Law Courts allowed the miscellaneous application filed by the Internal Affairs Unit of the Police Service authorizing a forensic examination of the police officers' electronic gadgets. The court also ordered DNA samples be taken for purposes of profiling and comparison with the recovered items. Through their lawyer, the 4 police officers, Peter Gashiko, Francis Andonye, John Kamau, and Joseph Mbugwa, have sought to stop their prosecution by the Internal Affairs Unit.
The IAU can conduct investigations, then make recommendations which they can pass to the IG or the DPP.
The four who were arrested on the 21st of October 2022 say the mandate of the Internal Affairs Unit is limited under Section 87 of the National Police Service Act 2011 to the investigation of complaints made against members of the National Police Service for offending offences, and the move to prosecute them was an overreach invading the mandate of the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority.
Those orders are not only illegal, they are unconstitutional, and they are meant to humiliate and embarrass our client.
Meanwhile, a Nairobi court has ordered an 81-year-old man to be put under police watch in a hospital as the court ordered that he undergoes a cardiovascular exam after failing to appear in court for plea taking, alleging a sickness.
We request the matter to be deferred for the next 2 months to enable him get discharged from the hospital, get back to his feet.
And I completely disagree with the council, respectively. I wonder why he is putting the period of 2 months. Is he under any surgery?
Mohammed Khan is expected to be charged with stealing by agents 63,700,000 Kenyan shillings between the 4th of December 2013 and the 16th of September 2014, a property entrusted to him by Surjit Singh Sawan Singh to pay to one Sukhdev Singh Mangat. The case will be mentioned on the 28th of November to confirm his medical condition. Seraphine Nairobi for Prime Edition.
Now, through film, producers and artists have stepped in to sensitize the populace on the importance of providing an environment that promotes psychosocial support among people suffering from mental health.
Such is the film Lusala, which is our focus tonight on our weekly segment, Cinemas and Theatre.
The little child. We didn't know what to expect, but now we're so proud to call you one of our own.
The film follows 22-year Lusala, adopted by an affluent Nairobi family a decade ago, and who is forced to leave the nest and start a new life by himself. Eager and acquiescent at first, he makes the most of his independence until the demons from his past return and he has to face them head on. The movie features Brian Ogola, who plays the character Lusala, alongside Stacey Waweru, Mkamze Mwatela, Alice Wangare, Charlie Karumi, Melvin Alusa, and finally Alan Oyugi, who plays the character Uncle Onesmus.
Actors use different methods of acting. One of the methods that's very common and that is being promoted is method acting, where a lot of personal pain and personal emotion is brought out. It could be from a different personal experience, but I use that feeling to bring out my character or another character. And in this case, I remember that how difficult it was, because certain people were bringing up certain memories from their past and so on. And to use that tool on screen is not easy.
Directed by Mugambi Ndhiga, the film Lusala seeks to highlight the issues around mental health and childhood trauma that often affect the youths.
It's a very important film because it deals with two critical issues: mental health, and not just mental health, but even mental health arising from childhood trauma. This is a topic that we discuss in this film, where there's violence meted out on a child, and what happens to this child later on when they grow up, based on the initial experience where this violence was meted out on the child. For a long time, the Kenyan film industry has been put on the back burner, if I may say so. I wouldn't even really say that we have a proper film industry, but we're heading in that direction, whereby we can employ as many people, as many young people who are gifted, who are talented, and this will be a major income earner for many people.
Although his past memories keep stalking him, Lusala is motivated to make the best out of life. He is offered a job as a car mechanic, but will he manage to overcome the trauma and move on with his normal life?
Tell everyone why you kicked Lusala out.
Jacqueline Masharia for Cinemas and Theatre.
Your entire personality is built around your bottoms. Wiggle it just a little bit. So now young ladies don't even want their age mates anymore.
Wanatafuta wababa.
Wanatafuta
sasa
wababa.
Sasa wewe kama mbaba.
Kama mbaba yuko na school fees.
Kila mtu anataka kuwa na Bentley.
There are serious things now around surgery.
Around surgery,
wrong,
yes.
And then the idiotic, your bottom line is, your song is so bad that to make people interested in it, you have to
use your backside
again.
You see, where are the brains?
Yes.
Where are the
hidden somewhere near the bottom?
Good evening. Now, before we speak police reforms, let's delve into the business arena where engineers have been urged to take advantage of the mutual recognition agreement already existing among East African Community member states to tap the expanded business opportunities. The Engineers Board of Kenya is in the process of signing up the Washington Accord to expand opportunities for members. Here's Wycliffe Okech with the details.
The Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya's maiden 3-day annual conference kicked off on Wednesday in Kisumu.
We have delegates, foreign delegates.
Among the key issues being discussed include integration of infrastructure and development, engineering education and training, water, sanitation and irrigation.
This conference is about infrastructure development. We have entitled it Rethinking and Reshaping Infrastructure Development Priorities in Africa. We chose infrastructure because it is critical to the socio-economic development of our country and the regions like the Lake Basin Development Region.
The conference will evaluate the critical infrastructure challenges, catalyze partnerships among actors, and devise ways of prioritizing infrastructure investment that will maximize benefits to society.
Local engineers were urged to explore regional markets made available by the mutual recognition agreement already existing within the East African community.
For us to open up positions for engineers to work freely across the globe, we need to enter into mutual recognition agreements. So one way we are trying to do that is to sign up with the Washington Accord, whereby our engineers, once we enter into the agreement, will be recognized with all the countries that have signed up to the Washington Accord.
And to reduce cases of major infrastructure projects stalling, county governments and financiers were challenged to set aside adequate funds to facilitate construction works and engage engineering professionals in the projects.
We also have engineers who have lived below expectations. And so for us to peer review ourselves and make sure that the high standards that we set in our professions is better by all those who are members of this profession.
For Prime Edition from Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Okech.
Now, the private sector has been urged to comply with sanitary and phytosanitary protocols to reduce cases of goods being rejected at the border points. East Africa Business Council Director Mushai Kenya says there's need for unifying standards to ensure the safety tests are done on imported and exported goods accepted across the East African Community member states.
The EAC Sanitary and Phytosanitary Protocol came into force last year after its ratification by all member states. To ensure its smooth implementation, the East Africa Business Council, in partnership with Trademark East Africa, has rolled out a sensitization program with the aim of boosting intra-EAC trade.
Once you create the sensitization and awareness, you can already comply, and in this way we can facilitate trade in the region. So for those who don't comply, sometimes it's because of lack of knowledge. So that's what we're trying to bridge, to ensure that the knowledge is created amongst the private sector.
The sensitization program targets to make private and public sector players aware of food safety measures they should follow to ensure goods aimed for cross-border markets pass the compliance test.
We first have to sensitize the private sector so they're aware of what food safety measures they need to follow. And that way, by the time you get to the border, you have already complied.
So that we are not putting too many rules so that the trade becomes impossible or expensive. Because ideally, if we can reduce costs while keeping safety going, that will be useful for all of us.
The officials say integrating the use of technology will enable traceability and visibility of implementation of the protocols. East African Business Council is now hoping that sensitizing private firms on complying with SPS protocols will help boost business activities in East Africa. For Prime Edition, I am Teresa Mutai.
Indeed, that is Tesla bringing us up to speed with what we can do to foster intra-regional trade. Now, rice production at the Ahero irrigation scheme is set to double once the planned expansion of the scheme is completed. The National Irrigation Authority plans to expand the irrigation scheme to 36,000 acres from the current 16,000 acres. The authority says Ahero is currently producing close to 40,000 metric tons of rice, but has the potential to double the number to 100,000 metric tons. Achala Simon with the details.
Consumption in Kenya has been growing at a rate of 11% in the last 10 years. This has made rice the third most important staple cereal in Kenya after maize and wheat. However, production has fallen far behind consumption, with the country producing 80,000 tons, while Kenyans consumed 710,000 tons in 2020. To lower the import cost and spur consumption, Kenya has been expanding land under rice irrigation, which currently stands at 25,000 acres. To increase rice production, the National Irrigation Authority plans to increase acreage at the Ahero irrigation scheme.
We say that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to take a longer distance, then go together. So maybe we can go together, but depending on how the Kenyans show their ownership. So rice production is one of the areas that the Japanese government is looking at, but also other areas of cooperation, because you have so nice Lake Victoria water resources, and there are social challenges that the neighboring counties are facing.
The National Irrigation Authority says the Ahero irrigation scheme is currently producing close to 40,000 metric tons of rice, but has the potential to hit well over 100,000 metric tons each season.
Still, there's a lot, over around 20,000 acres, which have not exploited, because also the capacity of our pumping system here. But now with this, if the Soru Koin Dam is constructed, we can be able to bring the other areas which we have not been able to exploit into full production. And that one will be able to increase the food security in this region.
The expansion of Ahero will be done with the help of Japanese government through Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA.
We would like to make this partnership sustainable on rice production in this area. So not only the rehabilitation of the infrastructure, we like to have a strong farming community here. That's the key for rice production to grow further. So not only the hardware component of the assistance that we are looking at, but we are looking at the soft component assistance.
The scheme manager, Ken Sitawa, also wants the government to invest more in mechanical pest and bird control measures to reduce wastage. Currently, close to a third of the production go to waste due to invasion by the red-billed quelea birds. Achala Simon, Kisumu County.
Now, building contractors are being encouraged to use helical piling system when setting up electricity poles to avoid building mishaps due to instability. Kenya Power Consulting engineer Peter Kenyan says modern anchoring structures for electricity poles reduce power outages as well as leave space for requirements and cut costs by as much as 30%.
In the last 10 years, more than 50% of construction projects have been suspended by the National Construction Authority due to non-compliance. Construction industry practitioners say this is mostly due to contractors using outdated practices and technology, especially for amenities such as electricity, infrastructure and plumbing.
Poor foundations have led to quite some disastrous results. Terms of structures collapsing, buildings collapsing, and we have seen it especially in our countries.
They say a lack of attention for proper foundation would deteriorate a building faster than normal.
So these can be like, it can be a catastrophe, it can be earthquake, it can be whatever, where you can save a lot of money and time by giving these solutions.
Is to add values to the location of business that we are in. That we will be able to contribute a new technology, new product.
In addition, they say using new technology would use less way leave, which would push further ongoing electrification efforts in the country.
We have a lot of power pylons and towers that crisscross the terrain of the country in all manner of terrain and soil conditions.
They say this technology would be important, especially in restricted terrains, where soil conditions, access, and concrete foundation operations are a challenge. Hibak Said for Prime Edition.
Now, Kenyans are being urged to embrace organic food consumption in a bid to nurture a healthy lifestyle. True Foods Chief Executive Officer Saga Malda says consumers from all over the world are increasingly becoming more concerned about the quality of their food supply besides being more health conscious.
During the annual International Chef Day, True Foods, which is Zesta Jam's maker, endorsed chefs across the country to encourage organic food consumption. John Masharia, one of the chefs, challenged fellow chefs to adopt the usage of natural products in their recipes.
Kenya can grow a very healthy future. In first of all, product knowledge. Chefs need to be knowledgeable with the new trends that are coming in the market. And those are things like vegans who have really turned the ballgame on cooking and how to produce things.
True Foods has announced plans to transition from plastic to glass packaging of some of its products to not only grow a healthy future, but also protect the environment as glass is natural, sustainable, and recyclable.
We are looking into becoming more environmentally savvy. We all know the world is changing into becoming or saving the planet. Therefore, we've already started our work by reducing the plastic content in our products. In addition to that, we also know and we are already started to source for glass as a replacement for plastic.
They also urged farmers to adopt organic farming.
Kenyans should invest more in learning more about our soils and how our food production need to come from the soils. So if we go organic, it will be much better for our country, and that will sustain us more healthier and productive.
True Foods has committed to roll out sugar-free products to drive the healthy living agenda.
That effectively puts a cap on matters of business, and I hand you over to my colleague Karen Kibet with the latest what is happening in sports. Just to remind you that it is exactly 25 days to the Qatar World Cup, and KBC Channel 1 is going to be televising that particular global showpiece. I'm Regina Manyara. I wish you a pleasant evening ahead.
A very good evening to you. I do hope you're holding up well. Let's now talk matters sports. My name is Karen Kibet. Now, 4 new faces have been included in the National Women's Rugby 15s-a-side team that will take part in the Rugby Africa Women's Pool B tournament in Kampala, Uganda. Head coach Dennis Mwanja, while naming the squad, disclosed that the team will be captained by Perez Muyuka.
The team has included 4 debutants: Natasha Emali, Hesla Kisa, Natasha Phoebe Akinyi, and Naomi Jelagat. Players who made the cut into the team include Stefania Waithera, Rose Otieno, Evelyn Kalemera, Stacey Atieno, Knight Otoma, Bernadette Olesia, Naomi Amuguni, Dana Kimunto, Lea Wambui, among others. The national team will depart for Kampala tomorrow and play its first match against Zambia this Saturday before facing host Uganda on 2nd of next month. The winner of the tournament qualifies for next year's Rugby Africa Cup, which will serve as a qualifier for the inaugural World Women's 15s WXV in 2023. Reporting for Prime Edition, I am Nora Mongi.
Thank you, Nora, for that report. Moving on, the national under-18 men's handball team won their second match in the ongoing International Handball Federation Trophy Africa Zone 5 Championship after beating South Sudan 57-9 at the Nyayo National Stadium. The team, which has now qualified for the semi-finals with a game to spare, now top Pool B after 2 matches. Yusuf Puoka is the top scorer for the Kenyan side after managing to find the net 12 times. Matthew Kiprop netted 8 times to guide the Kenyans to victory despite failing to dominate the encounter. Okoth Nkumbi contributed 7 goals while Alex Mwanzia scored 6. In another match, Burundi defeated Uganda 50-46. Kenya's under-18 team will face Ethiopia, while Kenya's under-20 juniors, who are the defending champions, will meet Uganda tomorrow. Cameroon could miss the services of striker Youssoufa Moukoko, who has reportedly been included in Germany's provisional World Cup squad. Elsewhere, Wales is likely to miss the services of defender Rhys Norrington-Davies after suffering an injury. Now, the World Cup finals will be televised live on KBC Channel 1 beginning on the 20th of next month. World Cup, sure, iko KBC.